Amazing revelation. How one waitress spoke Japanese and transformed a millionaire's life forever. Emma had never expected the depth of her own voice would surface on that typically bustling afternoon at Jack's Diner in San Francisco. As coffee pots clanged and the griddle hissed, the air buzzed with laughter and midday chatter. She poured coffee with the practiced ease of someone who had mastered the art of juggling chaos. Yet beneath her composed surface lay a torrent of conflicting emotions. Working as a waitress to support her single mother, Emma understood the weight of loyalty and labor. But there was a secret dream, tethered to her past. A life where she had studied Japanese, immersing herself in a world far from the confines of her current reality. As the lunch rush enveloped the diner, her attention drew to a man sitting alone in a corner booth. Hiroshi was a striking figure, yet the tension in his furrowed brow belied the composed demeanor of a millionaire businessman. The moment their eyes met, something ignited. A flicker of recognition that unearthed memories of a time when she had spoken those foreign words without hesitation. Swallowing her fear, Emma ventured, "Sumimasen," her voice hesitant yet electric, trembling with excitement. To her surprise, relief spread across his face. He responded in Japanese with effortless grace, words rolling off his tongue like silk, an intimacy born from shared understanding. As they conversed, their barriers shattered under the weight of their respective burdens. His grief over his father's death and the disconnect from his heritage mirrored her struggles between ambition and family duty. He saw her, really saw her, and in his gaze, she could feel her latent desire to reclaim her own voice fighting to emerge. But the whispers from her coworkers sliced through the vibrant connection they'd formed. "What does she know of his world?" they muttered. "Working-class loyalty means something. Is she ready to betray it?" Each comment festered like a wound, seeping into the cracks of her newly discovered courage. Emma's breath quickened, doubt creeping in like an unwelcome visitor. Was it wrong to help him? A millionaire? With their contrasting backgrounds, could she genuinely contribute to his world? Their partnership bloomed amidst shared bowls of ramen, laughter cutting through the din, yet every smile was met with the weight of prejudice from her peers. Assessing the corporate crisis Hiroshi faced, she threw herself into their plans, determined to blend her intimate knowledge of the community with his business savvy. But when a major deal imploded, sabotaged by a competitor, a crushing sense of despair enveloped her. Was she in over her head? In a diner surrounded by the familiar, she felt the unsettling emptiness of her neglected dreams. Had she sacrificed too much for someone so different from her? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emma stood in the kitchen, spatula in hand, the smell of fried food swirling around her as reality tightened like a noose. She felt hollow, her identity at stake. Could a waitress truly navigate the choppy waters of a millionaire's life? What if this entire endeavor was just a doomed distraction from the pressing obligations waiting for her at home? As she wrestled with the weight of these questions, the laughter of her colleagues faded into a distant echo, replaced by the oppressive scrutiny of doubt. She longed to make a difference, but with every passing moment, the fear of losing her own path loomed larger. The stakes had escalated, and she was left questioning everything. Could this bond redefine their realities? Or would it unravel both of their worlds? Emma leaned against the kitchen counter, the sounds of sizzling food and clattering dishes blurring into white noise as her thoughts spiraled. The sheer audacity of her connection with Hiroshi felt like both a gift and a curse. It was exhilarating, yet the reality of her situation loomed like dark clouds on the horizon. What had begun as excitement was now tainted with uncertainty. Her hands trembled slightly as she wiped down the surface, her mind racing through past memories of diligence and sacrifice for her mother. Each recollection only fortified the weight of obligation pressing on her shoulders. Her job was more than just a means. It was a lifeline. She imagined what her mother would think. Would she understand Emma's leap into a world unbeknownst to them? As she stood amidst the familiar chaos, her heart ached for the adventures she had once dreamed of, now buried under layers of responsibility. Emma took a deep breath and donned a smile as the lunch crowd surged once again. Every coffee-filled cup felt heavier as it slipped through her fingers. She thought about when she spoke Japanese with Hiroshi. It awakened something dormant in her, a desire not just to speak, but to weave her narrative into a design of her choosing. Slowly, the flicker of doubt ignited into a fiery resolve. She could reshape this self-doubt into something more. She needed to be more. That evening, wrapped in the dim light of her small apartment, she unfurled her notebook and started planning. Ideas flooded her mind like a tidal wave. Marketing strategies, community insights, and innovative concepts that could bridge Hiroshi's corporate world with the ordinary realities she understood so well. Each stroke of the pen felt like a promise, a commitment to herself that she would not disappear into the background. But the voices nagging at her consciousness returned, taunting her with the fear of failure. What if you mess up? What if you can't deliver? Questions that clawed at her subconscious, reminding her of her origins. Could people from different worlds truly collaborate? Or was she just an imposter in an endeavor destined for defeat? Emma laid down her pen, frustration boiling under the surface. If this were to work, she had to confront those doubts head-on, dismantling the judgments that overshadowed her aspirations. At that moment, the harsh light of reality pierced through her thoughts. She had to speak up, not just for herself, but to prove to Hiroshi and to her own mother that she was worth something more. The next day, she approached Hiroshi with a fresh determination. Their meetups felt different. Now she had a plan to contribute, to pitch her thoughts. As they sat across from each other in a quiet cafe, his brow furrowed in concentration, she locked eyes with him and declared, "I want to help you, but I need to be a part of this. I can make a difference." His surprise was palpable, giving her the moment she needed to charge ahead. Emma shared her ideas in rapid succession, confidence surging within her as she outlined how cultural insights could be the key to unlocking partnerships and opportunities that had previously eluded him. For the first time, she watched as Hiroshi smiled, a genuine expression of acknowledgement replacing the stoic facade he often wore. But just as she relished the moment, a phone call shattered their enthusiasm. The stern voice on the other end belittled their efforts, dismissing them as naive and futile. Emma felt an involuntary flush of anger ignite within her. They were being doubted, erased before they'd even begun to see results. Hiroshi's expression darkened, but Emma stood firm, fighting the urge to withdraw. "We have to prove them wrong," she asserted. A frisson of determination coursed through her veins. Perhaps this was the turning point. But the time had come to face her own insecurities. Could she fully commit to this uncharted landscape, despite the looming specter of failure? In that moment, the stakes had never been higher, not just for Hiroshi's business, but for her own identity. Is she ready to step beyond the confines of the diner and truly embrace this new path? With the pressure mounting, she breathed deeply, preparing to leap into the unknown. What lay ahead would test her very essence. Success and acceptance were within reach, but only if she chose to fight for them. With their futures intertwined, would Emma have the courage to face the challenge? The following day, Emma woke to the sharp light of the morning filtering through her apartment window, waking in a startled state, her heart still racing from her newfound resolve from the previous day. As she prepared for work, her mind replayed the decisions made, and what felt like a flicker of hope ignited deeper within her, a nascent sense of purpose. Today wouldn't be about mere survival in the cramped cafe, but igniting a path forward. Arriving at the diner, she threw herself into her routine with fervor, yet everywhere she turned, doubt lurked. The clattering plates and sizzling pans resonated with her fluctuating heartbeat, reminders of expectations she had struggled to meet. Just as the lunch rush began, her hands moved automatically, pouring coffee and serving lunch specials while her mind churned with thoughts of her conversation with Hiroshi. Despite the blurred lines of nostalgia and ambition at play, she refused to allow uncertainty to sink in. Soon, during a lull between shifts, Emma spread her notebook open on the counter and detailed every concept she had shared with Hiroshi, adding notes and revisions. She envisioned how each piece, no matter how small, could build toward a broader framework for success. The more she poured into it, the clearer her vision became, each scribbled strategy attaching her to a future she had dared to imagine. Until now, she had boxed herself within the confines of familiar routines, but working alongside Hiroshi challenged that. The intensity of her ambition was a double-edged sword. It illuminated her desire for growth, but galvanized her fear of not being enough. As the rush of customers built again, she wrestled through her afternoon thoughts with the reminder to breathe and not retreat. But another phone call shattered the tentative peace she built. Hiroshi's voice crackled through, urgency underpinning his words. "Emma, we need to meet sooner. I'm facing resistance on all fronts, and I believe we have a unique opportunity to pivot. Can we discuss it tonight?" Each word dug deeper into Emma's resolve. This could be her chance to show up, to stand firm against the very real skepticism looming over their shared aspiration. No longer a bystander, she would help shape their narrative. As night approached and she transformed the din of rush hour into a burgeoning conversation with Hiroshi, Emma felt the past weighing on her, but also granting her strength. The flickering streetlights outside echoed the stirrings of a different destiny, allowing her to pull from her deepest dreams. No more stifled ambitions, only a luminous path ahead if she dared to take the first step. They met in a small studio space enveloped in the fragrances of green tea and fresh pastries, a far cry from the polished offices of corporate elites where they aimed to excel. Emma could sense the tension that filled the room, the air thick with what felt like electric potential. "Okay, let's dissect the pushback and identify what we can redefine," she suggested, fingers tapping lightly on the table in front of them, asserting her presence with every gesture. As Hiroshi fretted over numbers and strategies, she pulled every strength from her core and confronted him. "You said we needed cultural insights. I know what those are for our demographic. We have knowledge and data that are not only credible, but can serve as an integral part of our pitch." Hiroshi paused, absorbing her words. Those moments of silence drew out their tension, but also hinted at collaboration. The doubt that had previously clouded her voice began to fade, realizing she was no longer just offering support. She was an essential partner in this dialogue. But as they delved deeper into the planning, Emma felt herself struggling to articulate her ideas under his keen scrutiny. Would she be seen not just as Hiroshi's ally, but as a valuable force? The thought ignited a spark of bravery. The stakes were not limited to their proposal. They were profoundly personal. "Emma, these numbers are necessary," he pressed. A flash of annoyance flared within her, igniting rooted insecurities. Yet instead of succumbing, she took a deep breath and faced him head-on. "Hiroshi, I can do more. Give me access to that data, and I will turn it into a narrative they can't ignore." For a moment, Hiroshi's eyes searched hers, weighing their potential partnership carefully. Perhaps he saw what others had yet to recognize. She was more than a waitress, more than an imposter. But in that very moment of clarity, she felt the coils of self-doubt tightening once again. What if she in fact failed to deliver? Their ambitions now wove intricately together, destiny interlinked. Yet what if she too became a reflection of the failure they sought to avoid? Emma had to decide whether to shrink back or embrace the unraveling potential of her voice. With the flames of anxiety at her heels, she pressed on, steeling herself for the impending confrontation with her own fears. Would she fully embrace that fleeting flicker of courage, even when the shadows of doubt returned? As she and Hiroshi prepared to face their challenges head-on, a deep breath filled her lungs, and she realized the real test loomed just ahead. Would she unleash the full spectrum of her capabilities, even if it meant wading into uncharted waters? She understood that crucial pivot moments could happen at any time, not just in boardrooms, but within the chambers of the heart. Emma was poised to step beyond her fears, determination coursing through her like an electric pulse. And in that space, they both needed to prepare to confront more than just corporate skepticism. The real battle remained ahead, as both her identity and future were hanging in the balance. Would their partnership be strong enough to withstand the ultimate test of integrity and vision? The sun dipped low in the evening sky, casting warm hues across the canvas of a fading day as Emma paced within the small studio. Her mind buzzed with vigor and apprehension. The gravity of their aspirations weighed on her shoulders, igniting both a profound desire for success and an unrelenting fear of inadequacy. She was no longer the girl content to blend into the background of clattering dishes and murmured customer orders. She was emerging as a collaborator in the crafting of their future. Yet, her resolve was punctuated by an uneasy rhythm of doubt. "Emma," Hiroshi called, breaking the silence. He was immersed in spreadsheets, a frown etched across his brow. "What if we pivot to focus more on the narrative rather than hard numbers? We can illustrate how our vision encapsulates a changing landscape." The suggestion resonated with her, and she straightened, her mind racing. "Exactly. We can tell stories that connect with our target audience, but we have to ensure we're backed by data so they trust our insights." Hiroshi nodded, and for a fleeting moment, she felt the thrill of their united purpose. Yet in her heart, trepidation festered. What if her contributions fell short? The shadows loomed larger as she dissected every ounce of her knowledge. She had lived a life dictated by the narratives of others, a life stripped of her dreams. Could she truly command respect and credibility in the realms that felt so foreign to her? A silence enveloped them. Hiroshi stood, fingers drumming against the tablet, while Emma busied herself with her notes. Around her thoughts, fragments of ideas coalescing into actionable strategies. Without warning, a sudden clarity struck her. "Hiroshi," she began, feeling the urgency swell within. "We need to integrate personal anecdotes. Our backgrounds can bring authenticity to our data." He turned, a flicker of intrigue sparking in his eyes. "That could reinforce our vision," he encouraged. "Let your personal story be a bridge between culture and market." His encouragement was a tonic. The genesis of an idea blossomed in her consciousness. She could weave in her own cultural experiences as a lens through which their proposal could be viewed. The notion sparked excitement and catalyzed the kindling of confidence hidden deep inside. For years, she had held back her unique perspective, fearing it wouldn't be valued or understood. As the hours ticked by, the pair worked diligently into the night. Emma wrote feverishly, as snippets of her past morphed into compelling narratives. Her childhood memories, her family's traditions, their struggles and triumphs, formed a rich tapestry. Would these insights strike a chord with decision-makers? Just as Emma seemed prepared to embrace this newfound capability, the phone rang again, slicing through the atmosphere. It was the project head from Hiroshi's corporate office. Her voice was brisk, efficiency palpable through the line. "I need your presentation finalized by tomorrow afternoon. This is crucial, and we're counting on every angle being polished tight. No loose ends." Emma's heart sank as the pressure intensified. Here it was, the test of her mettle. She exchanged uncertain glances with Hiroshi, who, despite the unease threading its way through his aura, showed unwavering support. "We got this, Emma. Let's refine your stories." As they worked side by side, she harnessed vulnerability, transformed it into an asset. Every keystroke was an act of defiance against the doubts that had shaped her, yet anxiety prickled at the corners of her determination. In this collaborative space, she was realizing that personal ownership of her narrative was as pivotal as presenting factual data. But with the deadline looming, she was set to confront more than time. She had to face the daunting specter of self-doubt head-on. "What if I am not enough?" she asked quietly, feeling her voice tremble. Hiroshi paused, an expression of understanding crossing his face. "You are enough, Emma. Your experiences are what make our pitch powerful. This is our moment to merge credibility with passion." That simple acknowledgement sent a ripple through her, awakening a flame within. As the night deepened around them, she prepared to step into the next day's uncertainty. Moments of truth were on the horizon, but she could already taste the potential of new beginnings. Could she finally embrace the truest version of herself amidst the expectations of the corporate world? What revelation awaited her at the converging point of ambition and vulnerability? The time had come for Emma to step beyond the surface of her fears. She was ready to confront her destiny. The morning broke with a pale light that barely penetrated the thick curtain of anxiety shrouding Emma's heart. The deadline loomed, a monstrous ticking clock in her mind as she sat across from Hiroshi, both of them engulfed in the dim glow of their laptop screens. She felt the weight of expectations, hers and others. For years she had served tables, slipping between the roles of observer and participant in a life that felt preordained, constricting her true ambitions. Now, she was at the precipice of redefining her narrative. Yet terror gripped her. As she reviewed her notes, words clashed and mingled, creating a battlefield of half-formed thoughts. "What if I let you down?" she muttered, more to herself than to Hiroshi. The truth was, she had always preferred the realm of the familiar, the rush of patrons, the rhythm of orders. But that comfort had a high price, one that felt increasingly impossible to pay. "Emma," Hiroshi interrupted, pulling her back from her spiral of uncertainty. "You have a unique voice. We've highlighted the statistics, laid bare the trends. Now it's time to inject heart into this presentation. Your journey matters." His words hung in the air like a lifeline. She needed to dive into the visceral experiences of her past and lay bare her truths, not just for the presentation, but for herself. Each anecdote was a stepping stone, forging confidence where doubt once thrived. She began to organize her thoughts, crafting narratives around familial struggles and cultural pride, transforming pain into purpose. Could these personal stories effectively connect with a boardroom full of suits and spreadsheets? In the quiet of the studio, the tension sharpened into focus. She felt the pulse of her heritage thrumming in her veins, the sacrifices of her parents urging her forward. She recalled her mother's adage, "We tell our stories to remind ourselves who we are." It resonated deeply. Her story deserved to be acknowledged, no longer a mere whisper against the clamor of others' achievements. "Let's structure it," she said, her voice steadier now. "We can start with my family's experience, then weave in how that informs our approach to current market trends." The conviction in her tone stunned her as much as it impressed Hiroshi, who nodded with enthusiasm. "Exactly. You're not just selling an idea, you're selling authenticity. We will juxtapose your narrative with the critical data insights. It's a fusion." His eyes sparkled with the thrill of collaboration, and Emma felt her resolve harden. As they built their presentation slide by slide, each fragment of her story infused new energy into the project. With every narrative choice, she confronted her fears. Her candor battled against the implications of vulnerability. Yet, she shone brighter, emerging from dense shadows into the light of self-acceptance. But lurking beyond her triumphant moments was the undeniable pressure of the impending meeting. She worried not just about her delivery, but also about the audience's reception. What if they dismissed her stories, seeing them merely as sentimentality? Would the corporate world recognize the weight of personal experience? With that thought nagging, a new question surfaced from her subconscious. Was she truly prepared to unveil the depths of her experiences to an audience prepared to sift through the technical? Each beat of her heart felt like an echo of hesitation, complicating her burgeoning confidence. "Emma," Hiroshi's measured voice broke through her thoughts again. "Remember, showcasing who we are, with all our imperfections, is our strength. You are the bridge between numbers and narratives." Did he really believe it? Did she? The haunting doubts loomed once more, disquieting the fire she had ignited. She was sliding back into familiar territory, the fear of being unseen, unheard. The clock ticked mercilessly closer to their deadline, but instead of retreating, the urge to embrace her hidden strengths surged. Would she step resolutely into the room and face her experiences with unabashed honesty? Or would she falter, surrendering to doubt? With her heart racing, Emma crossed her arms firmly against the table. "I want to present my story authentically. I'll find a way to turn this meeting into something meaningful." Hiroshi smiled appreciatively. "That's the spirit. But remember, the real revelation is not just what you will present today. It's how much you will embrace yourself in the process." With that, a flicker of determination ignited in her. The moment of truth was descending quickly, and she was prepared, for revelation awaited in the boardroom, where courage would need to outlast trepidation. What awaited her at that intersection of ambition and vulnerability? It was time to find out. The boardroom was stark and intimidating, an expanse of polished wood and glass that gleamed under the tenacious overhead lights. As Emma entered, the air felt heavy, charged with the weight of expectations and the musky scent of polished ambition. 11 figures sat around the imposing table, all eyes shifting to her as she took her place at the front. A part of her wanted to retreat, to slip back into the anonymity that had long accompanied her time in the service industry. But another part, the part she had been nurturing with every presentation slide, craved acknowledgement. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice steady despite a quiver of nerves. The faintest smile from Hiroshi on the periphery gave her a surge of confidence, and she clicked the first slide forward. The data points illuminated the screen, but she was more aware of the rising tide of her heartbeat than the numbers themselves. Here was her moment to bridge that numeric realm with her personal narrative. As she transitioned into her family story, she felt the room shift. "I grew up in a small household, where my parents worked tirelessly behind the scenes, my mother waiting tables, and my father teaching English as a second language," she recounted, her voice finding strength in familiarity. Faces softened slightly as she painted the picture of her upbringing, conjuring memories of late-night study sessions and the relentless pursuit of a better life. Yet with each word, a flicker of doubt danced in her mind. Would they appreciate these anecdotes, or reduce them to mere flavor added to their corporate palate? Her stomach twisted, but she pressed on, weaving together her cultural insights with the hard data Hiroshi had prepared. "What we're witnessing in these market trends isn't just statistics. It's a reflection of human resilience and diversity," she asserted, her tone gaining a fervor that seemed to legitimize her anxieties. Around the table, expressions varied from curiosity to skepticism, but Emma locked eyes with each executive, drawing strength from their reactions. She remembered Hiroshi's words: authenticity was strength, so she leaned deeper into the emotional undercurrents of her narrative. "I've spent years feeling as though I am split between two worlds, the waitress who listens and the businesswoman who speaks. Today, I choose to merge both," she declared, enveloping herself in the narrative. The faces in the room shifted subtly, awareness dawning as her voice broached the topic of biases and missed opportunities that many overlooked in their numerical evaluations. The tension in her shoulders began to dissolve as she related anecdotes of her customers, theirs and her struggles alike, efforts transcending the transactions. Each story was not merely hers, but a shared experience that resonated within those sterile walls. The real challenge was not sharing her journey. It was recognizing the shared humanity present in the boardroom. But then came the moment she dreaded. An executive raised a brow, skepticism cloaked in a well-practiced politeness. "Emma, while your story is touching, how does this personal context translate to actionable insights for our market strategy?" Heat surged up her spine. Doubt swirled. The anchor of her newfound strength threatened to sink into panic. Would she falter? Would this room, defined by numbers and cold logic, lack time for her truth? Reaching deep within herself, she decided to turn this challenge into an opportunity. The emotional resonance of our customers stems from their stories, just as I have shared mine. By embracing our diverse perspectives in marketing, we can create campaigns that resonate on a deeper level, where data meets humanity. A pause followed, thick with the weight of her vulnerability. She could hear the clock ticking in the background, echoing her internal battle for validation. Would they recognize the merit in her fresh take? As discussions erupted around the table, Emma felt a fragile yet undeniable thrill flow through her. In that moment, she had ventured past the shadow of doubt and into a new territory of dialogue. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. Navigating skepticism with candor had vindicated her decision to uphold her story. Yet the discussion was far from over. As the executives deliberated, challenges surfaced and inquiries sharpened. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the deepest conversations resided just beyond the surface of their exchanges. As the meeting wore on, she caught a glimpse of Hiroshi nodding in approval, yet it was her own reflection in the glass that mattered most. She no longer saw a waitress worried about losing her footing. Instead, she caught a glimpse of a woman ready to redefine the parameters of the game. But as the meeting approached its conclusion, the unnerving question still lingered in her mind. Had she truly bridged the gap, or merely skated across the surface of deeper truths? What awaited her as the room began to quiet? Conclusion or confrontation? That pulsating uncertainty beckoned her forward, igniting her resolve. She needed to ensure she had not merely survived this presentation, but had laid the groundwork for an even more potent dialogue, one that ventured into the depths of both personal and professional revelations. The hum of conversation filled the room, a cacophony of varying opinions and strategies as the executives exchanged ideas. The intensity pulsed in Emma's veins, the trepidation battling with burgeoning confidence. They had engaged her lived experience, and she understood deep in her gut that their curiosity was a doorway to a much larger conversation. But as she listened, dissecting the arguments made by her colleagues, a thought kept surfacing like a stubborn weed. She had captured their attention. Yes, but could she sustain it? Was her story merely a distraction from the quantifiable metrics that dictated their decisions? She anchored herself against the wall of glass, absorbing the reflections of those around her. Were they still skeptical? Or had her narrative sparked something deeper? The executive who had posed the question earlier, a distinguished woman named Frances, leaned forward, brows knitted deep in thought. Emma had always viewed Frances as an icon of authority, someone whose polished demeanor concealed layers of complexity. A knot formed in Emma's stomach. Perhaps initiating the challenge wasn't enough. Now she needed to navigate the storm that would follow. While the women across from her held the power to influence the direction of her career and the company's strategies, Emma realized she needed to approach them not just as executives, but as potential allies. Frances's skepticism could transform into mentorship if handled with care. The thought consumed her. Suddenly, a decision crystallized. The lingering tension in the air could serve as a catalyst for even greater growth. She needed to ask Frances for feedback, to confront her directly, dig deeper, and seek guidance rather than validation. It was a risk, but by doing so, Emma would be demonstrating the very principle she had advocated for, an embrace of the vulnerability that came with human connection. A silence descended, thickening as the discussion shifted to a new strategy for outreach. Emma felt the growing urgency to act. "Frances," she called, her voice cutting through the deliberations. All eyes turned to her, including Frances's, demandingly still. "May I ask how you perceive the balance between personal narratives and actionable metrics in our outreach strategies?" Frances regarded her with the cool detachment of a seasoned strategist, weighing the question like a finely tuned balance. "It's imperative, Emma, to ensure that emotions don't cloud our analytical vision. But sometimes the numbers alone don't reflect the entirety of the human condition linked to our product. Your approach has merit, but can you allow your truth to work alongside the data, not opposed to it?" Fascinating. Emma felt the flicker of possibility ignite her where doubt had lingered. It wasn't simply about choosing one approach over the other. It was about merging the two. She could advocate for stories, integrate them within the framework of statistical analysis, conveying their inherent significance in ways hard data often failed to do alone. Perhaps, Emma began carefully, we can create pilot campaigns that quantify emotional engagement. For every strategy, we could integrate customer stories and feedback relevant to our data points, narrowing the insights to human-centric metrics. Francis's eyes sparkled, a hint of intrigue breaking through her professional facade. Emma felt her heart racing as she lifted the conversation higher, eager to solidify this newfound synergy. It could define a new standard for how we gauge success. What if you could expand your legendary metrics with something more textured and nuanced? Interesting, Francis replied, leaning back and studying Emma closely. Risky too, but interesting. Behind them, the room buzzed with renewed energy. Conversations shifted as Emma opened up new avenues, presenting thoughts and insights anchored by her personal experiences, yet firmly rooted in the analytical world each executive thrived in. It became apparent that Emma was gesturing toward an intersection where traditional business met untapped emotional narratives. The connection felt electric, and with each word she exchanged, her confidence surged. The meeting concluded with a sense of renewed purpose. Francis turned to Emma before leaving, a flicker of respect evident in her expression. Let's continue this dialogue, Emma. The central figure of her transformation had acknowledged her and propelled her forward on the path. As the executives dispersed, Emma couldn't shake the question from her mind. Would this emerging collaboration with Francis shape the career she craved, or would new obstacles reveal themselves along the way? Either way, she was ready to confront whatever lay ahead. And as she stood there, the air still buzzing with anxiety and exhilaration, a new realization formed in her mind. The real challenge would be finding the courage to embrace additional complexities and confront the hidden dynamics of power and influence within her journey. What shadows of doubt loomed as she prepared to engage deeper with Francis and her colleagues? The urgency of the next step pressed against her, a thrilling unknown waiting to unfold. The quiet hum of the office replaced the chaotic energy of the meeting, and as Emma settled back at her desk, she felt a shift within herself. The encounter with Francis pulsated in her mind, each detail replaying like an echo. She had taken her first step towards meaningful connections, but another layer of complexity loomed ahead. What if she faltered in this emerging alliance? Acting on impulse, she opened her notebook and began outlining her thoughts. Her fingers danced across the pages, structuring a proposal for the intertwining of narratives and metrics, a proposal that could influence not only marketing strategy, but also company culture. She envisioned a vibrant collage of stories, data, and human experiences transforming how her team viewed customer engagement. But as she scribbled, an unsettling apprehension crept in. What if they dismissed my proposal? She thought. What if Francis, who had momentarily sparked hope, reverted to being just another gatekeeper in a corporate maze? The prospect nagged at her. She would need to present strong arguments and undeniable evidence to sway opinions entrenched in numbers. The question pushed her to confront her limitations. Could she genuinely fuse data with narrative in a way that would resonate? Would her own tale be convincing enough to convey the power of emotional connection? Or would her colleagues only see vulnerability as a weakness? Wrestling with these doubts, Emma steeled herself. She decided to take an analytical approach to her fears. What proof do I have that narratives can change perspectives? She pondered. This led her to revisit customer testimonials and data from previous campaigns, scrutinizing them through a different lens. She needed more than just anecdotes. She required measurable impact. Thus, her research journey began. Hours melded into days, each daylight fading into the next as she collected evidence. She interviewed colleagues who had successfully merged quantitative data with qualitative stories. Those conversations solidified her belief in the concept she was forming. One late evening, a breakthrough emerged. a clear case study illustrating how emotional engagement led to a significant uptick in customer loyalty and satisfaction ratings. It invigorated her spirit. Equipped with compelling narratives supported by data, Emma felt emboldened to reach out to Frances. What started as a tentative email transformed into a fiery correspondence filled with enthusiasm and urgency over coffee. Frances agreed to meet, and Emma sensed the tension of leaning into this pivotal discussion. As she walked through the lobby on the day of their meeting, Emma noted her reflection in the sleek glass doors. Determined, focused, yet still carrying vestiges of apprehension in the tight clench of her jaw. "Emma," Frances greeted, her voice steady and authoritative as they settled into their seats at the cafe. Conversations swirled around them, but Emma found solace in the intensity of the moment. After exchanging pleasantries, she dove into her proposal with fervor, weaving her research findings and emotional anecdotes into a coherent narrative. Frances listened intently, nodding occasionally, her gaze unwavering. Emma felt captured by her mentor's aura, yet every second that ticked by heightened the loaded silence between them. The stakes were high. This conversation could pivot her career trajectory. When she finished, there was a moment of stillness. Frances leaned back, folding her arms. "You've assembled a strong case, Emma," she said, measuring her words thoughtfully. But then, the unexpected. Frances looked pensive. "However, have you truly reconciled your passion with our company's core values? Can personal stories align with our brand?" Emma's heart raced. The question sliced deeper than she anticipated, challenging her broader ambitions. Was she, in her pursuit to introduce emotion, risking the professional decorum the corporate world demanded? The weight of the moment hung over her. The realization hit hard. She must confront the fundamental question about the balance between authenticity and corporate expectations. As Frances's gaze pierced through, Emma felt the floor shift beneath her. A tremor of doubt pulsed in tandem with a stirring of resolve. "I need to articulate not just my vision, but also its alignment with our mission," she thought, her inner dialogue tinged with urgency. What did success truly mean? Did she possess the insight to tread these precarious waters? Or was she just an ambitious dreamer on the verge of losing her footing? With clarity emerging from chaos, Emma sensed an imminent clash between her values and the realities of corporate life. The time had come for a decisive moment that could redefine her path. She would confront this tension head-on, seeking clarity and purpose amidst uncertainty. In the face of Frances's penetrating scrutiny, could Emma craft a narrative that not only preserved her authentic voice, but also merged harmoniously with the stringent demands of the corporate world? The stakes were mounting, and the next steps loomed large. Would she find the strength to answer that defining question? Or would the shadows of misalignment obscure her ambitions? The air buzzed with energy as Emma sat across from Frances. Time seemed suspended in that intimate cafe corner. She could feel the weight of Frances's expectations grappling with her own burgeoning insights. The tension mirrored the complex emotions swirling within her: fear, excitement, determination. "Would you like to reconsider your approach?" Frances asked, her voice firm yet inviting. "Your concept is ambitious, but how do you see it translating into actionable strategies?" This was the point where many would falter. Emma took a breath, steadying herself. It was a moment of reckoning, recognizing that there was no way forward without vulnerability. "I believe that narratives can drive our metrics because they bring our brand to life," she replied, searching for conviction in her voice. "But I need to connect those narratives directly to our corporate values." Frances nodded, attentive. Emma could feel her heart race as she acknowledged the churning thoughts that had kept her awake at night. "The stories we tell must resonate with our audience while reflecting our commitment to integrity and innovation," she continued, her confidence swelling. "We can emphasize customer experiences that align with our mission and values." "Interesting," Frances mused, tapping a finger against her chin, contemplating Emma's words. How do you plan to gather these stories effectively? You'll need more than data points. Creating buy-in across the company will be crucial. As if ignited by a spark, Emma's fog of uncertainty dissipated. By initiating a series of workshops where employees can share individual experiences, we could compile a library of narratives that highlight our alignment with core values. These stories will not only humanize our brand, but also strengthen internal culture and cohesion. Frances arched an eyebrow, glimmers of interest dancing in her eyes. You're suggesting that we create an environment conducive to storytelling at every level? Emma nodded vigorously. Exactly. If we empower employees to embrace their voices, we can build an authentic narrative that isn't just about customer engagement, but also about fostering a shared purpose. We want every team member to feel their story matters and impacts our goals. The conversation swayed, emotions fishing for resonance. Frances leaned forward, intrigued. That could be powerful. But how will you convince others, especially the executives, that this approach is worth the investment? Emma felt a surge of adrenaline. Here lay the crux of her challenge. Through evidence, she asserted, recalling her late nights of research and deliberation. I will present case studies demonstrating how other companies have successfully integrated storytelling to boost morale and engagement, seeing measurable returns. That data isn't just valuable, it's essential. Frances's expression softened. Your passion shines through. But passion alone won't navigate the complexities of corporate culture. You will have to model resilience and adaptability. At that moment, Emma felt a profound shift within her. Frances's critique wasn't a setback, but an invitation to refine her understanding of the corporate landscape. I'm ready to navigate that complexity, she asserted, feeling clarity emerge from conflict. I have to confront my fears, seek feedback from peers, and adapt our approach as needed. Building a flexible narrative framework will allow space for innovation. It's a journey, not a destination. Frances smiled slightly. Tugging at weaknesses creates room for growth. You're evolving, Emma. Buoyed by the validation, Emma took a breath, sensing an intuitive alignment between her aspirations and the corporate structure. This narrative she yearned to weave wasn't just a professional necessity. It became a personal quest, intricately tied to her sense of purpose. The conversation wrapped up, but the air remained thick with potential. Emma stood at a precipice, aware that the skills she must refine were not just about narratives, but about leadership, collaboration, and embracing the authentic self within the professional sphere. She understood that the next steps required courage to confront not only corporate battles, but also her internal fears and conflicting desires. As Emma exited the cafe, she felt invigorated by the power of possibility, carrying a renewed sense of direction. Yet, in the depths of her mind, a nagging uncertainty remained. Would she not only connect narratives with metrics, but forge pathways within a corporate system often resistant to change? With the evening light shimmering in soft hues, she resolved to not just wield her passion, but curate a narrative so compelling it would break through barriers. The challenge was steep, and the barriers looming, but Emma also understood the reality. Her journey had only just begun. What awaited her in the corporate labyrinth, potential allies, unseen adversaries, or a revelation about her hidden capacities. This chapter was closing, but the next beckoned loudly, promising conflict intertwined with the quest for authenticity among the institutional demands. Emma stood outside the impressive office building, her heart pounding with anticipation and apprehension. The weeks following her pivotal meeting with Frances had transformed her both personally and professionally. She had taken her passion for storytelling and, under the guidance of that powerful mentor, crafted a comprehensive proposal to intertwine narratives and metrics for their upcoming marketing campaign. Now was the moment of truth. Would they embrace her vision? As she stepped into the glass-walled conference room, the crisp scent of fresh coffee filled her lungs, grounding her before the storm. 11 executives would hear her pitch, a group who carried the weight of critical decisions impacting the future of the company. Each one represented various perspectives, some progressive, others skeptical, each presenting a different potential hurdle. "Good morning, everyone," Emma opened, her voice surprisingly steady. The nods from Francis and Hiroshi, sitting at the forefront, anchored her resolve. She launched into her presentation with fervor, showcasing compelling data interlaced with genuine stories that highlighted the very essence of their customers. "Through human connection," she articulated, "we can elevate our marketing strategies. Our customers are not mere statistics. They are individuals whose experiences can breathe authenticity into our brand. When we engage them on that emotional level, loyalty follows." The first slide transitioned to a collage of personal narratives from employees and customers alike, detailing how their lives intertwined with the company's mission. Inspired by her own journey and the mentorship of Francis, Emma had gathered insights that encapsulated the heartbeats of those who interacted with their brand. The room pulsed with a mix of intrigue and skepticism as Emma switched into the analytical part of her presentation, seamlessly integrating the emotional with the empirical. Yet, as she continued, Emma could sense the tension rising. An executive leaned back, arms crossed, piercing her with a critical gaze. "Emma, while your insights are engaging, we operate in a data-driven environment. How can we expect storytelling to translate into bottom-line results?" She felt the familiar churn of doubt, but enforced her grounded confidence. "Incorporating qualitative narratives into our quantitative frameworks can yield greater engagement. I propose a pilot program, collecting data alongside stories to measure the emotional impact on customer loyalty. We will not merely speculate, we will substantiate." Her words ignited murmurs across the table. Behind her nervous demeanor was the depth of her conviction. She recalled Francis's wisdom about finding the intersection of authenticity and analytical rigor. Customer testimonials will provide insights that traditional metrics overlook. "This is a fundamental shift," Emma asserted, her voice rising. "Together we can foster a culture that marries emotional resonance with measurable impact." At that moment, Francis shifted in her seat, eyes glimmering with approval, and Emma seized the opportunity. "In fact, I have case studies from industry leaders who successfully implemented similar strategies and experienced enhanced engagement rates and brand loyalty. Our competitors are recognizing this. If we don't adapt, we risk becoming obsolete." When Emma concluded her presentation and opened the floor to questions, the initial air of skepticism began to dissolve. Several executives engaged, debating her proposal's merits and potential, but ultimately seemed invigorated by the fusion of her insights. After a prolonged discussion, Francis stood, turned toward Emma, and smiled. "Thank you for your passion and commitment to this vision. I believe we need to explore this further. Let's refine Emma's proposal and prepare a brief for our next board meeting." An overwhelming wave of relief surged within Emma. She had not just defended her point, she had instigated a genuine shift in dialogue. The applause that followed felt less a celebration of her personal achievement and more an acknowledgement of the collaborative spirit brewing in that room. As she exited the conference room, Emma breathed deeply, absorbing the reality of what she had just experienced. She had faced her fears, transformed her doubts into a narrative that compelled others, and reclaimed her presence in the corporate realm. With each step away from the boardroom, Emma felt the solid confidence of established competence settle in her core. She had conquered the chasm that once stood between her dreams and reality, proving to herself and others that she could anchor her background into the professional tapestry of success. Indeed, she could navigate the complexity of these worlds. A waitress, once tethered to obligation, had emerged a vital force in the tapestry of business innovation. Emma was not merely building bridges between narratives and metrics. She was establishing her identity within the professional landscape. Now brimming with clarity and purpose, Emma acknowledged the journey ahead, not just as a campaigner for change, but as an advocate for cultural transformation. The narrative of her life had transcended limitations. She had positioned herself as an essential thread in the fabric of the corporate world. The horizon appeared bright, infused with potential as she exited the building. Beyond existed an uncertain future, challenges and victories, highs and lows. But with resolved determination, Emma was prepared to manifest her identity, seeking continual growth and authentic triumph. You need to subscribe now to witness Emma's next chapter and more exclusive emotional stories that inspire transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these powerful narratives thriving. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Emma's journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait. Even one more second. The time for action is now.